Hi everyone, we are excited to have you here in today's fun filled learning session at Uolo. Here is a quick look at how you can submit your work after the class. As a first step, go to live.uolo.com. You can use any browser to access this site. On this page, you will see a list of all our classes. Scroll down and you can see the Submit Your Work button. And then you will see a list of the classes that you've last attended, which could, for example, show the dance or craft or science experiment classes you've attended recently. Next, it will show you the list of children whose names are registered in this mobile number. Choose your name from this list to submit your work. For instance, if you are Satvik Kumar, choose that name. And then choose the class for which you would like to make your submission. For example, if you've attended the New Year's Masquerade Party session and you'd like to make the submission for this class, click on the Submit Your Work button below that. And then upload the photo you've taken. Choose the image from your phone and click Submit. You can scroll down and view all your past submissions and see how many of your friends or peers have liked your work. You can also see others' work and like their work to inspire your friends. If you want to showcase your work on social media, that too is very simple. Click on share, copy the link, and post it on Instagram or Facebook or any other platform of your choice. Just a tiny reminder, your submission looks a lot better if you could click a photo in the landscape mode rather than the portrait mode. Do not forget to tag us at YOLO_app. I'm eagerly looking forward to all your submissions right after this class.
Hey there, kids. How are you doing? Welcome to today's class. Now, today is another day as part of our GK and art course that we have going on, and I'm super excited to have you here because today's class is going to be all about art. Now, before we go ahead and get started with what we're going to go ahead and do as part of today's class, as well as the list of materials that you need, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the certificate program as well as a little bit about your submissions. Now, coming to your certificate program, like you all know, you're getting certificates for the work that you're already going ahead and doing. The only two things that you have to go ahead and keep in mind is that firstly, make sure you're going ahead and attending all of the classes of a particular course. For example, this is a four-part course, so make sure you're going ahead and attending all of the four classes. Now, apart from that, coming to your submissions, you have to make sure to go ahead and submit all of your work. Now, for example, again, this is a four-part course, so you will end up having four submissions to do, and make sure you go ahead and do that. If you do that, automatically you will get you get a certificate at the end of the course. Now, apart from the certificate program, I always like talking to you about the submissions that you're going ahead and doing. When I talk about your submissions, I talk about how I want you to go ahead and focus on one major thing, which is going to be progress. I want to basically look at how you are improving on a day-to-day basis, and the only way we can go ahead and see how you're improving on a day-to-day basis is going to be to look at your submissions. So as a teacher and as a student, let's focus on that. So in order to focus on that, what I want you to do is do your submission irrespective of how you've gone ahead and done on that day. Sometimes you might have done a good job, sometimes you might have done an average job, sometimes you've done an amazing job. Now, irrespective of how you've done on that day, do your submission so that I, as a teacher, can see how you're going ahead and doing. I, as a teacher, can go ahead and see those small changes and those small improvements, and automatically will know that you're going ahead and learning exactly the way I want you to go ahead and learn. Now, since we've spoken so much about all of that, let's start talking about today's class. Now, today's class is going to be all about art. So, we're going to be going ahead and talking about what art is, where it came from, how it sort of evolved over time. And we're going to be going ahead and talking about the types of art form that exist in today's day and age and previously as well. And then we'll go ahead and end the class with a few fun art facts. Now, before we go ahead and get started with the discussion and talking, let's go ahead and start talking about the list of materials that you need for today's class. So the first thing that you need for today's class is going to be a sheet of paper. So here I have sort of like a sketchbook, drawing book, whatever you want to go ahead and call it with me. You can go ahead and take a sketchbook, drawing book, loose sheet of paper, A4 size sheet of paper, anything that you have with you would work absolutely well. The next thing that you'll need for today's class is going to be a pencil. Now, this pencil is going to be optional. You can go ahead and directly do your work with sketch pens like how I will do it today. But if you need a pencil as sort of, a rough guide or a rough sketch to go ahead and do, make sure you have a pencil with you. The next thing that you'll need for today's class is going to be a sketch pen. So here you can see I have a black color sketch pen. What I did for today's class is I went ahead and used only sketch pen. So what I'm going to show you next is basically going to be a bunch of color pencils. Now you can go ahead and either take a bunch of color pencils, you can take a bunch of crayons, or you can go ahead and take a set of sketch pens to go ahead and do your filling in work. So your black sketch pen is going to be all about your outlining, and then your some form of medium of color will be required. You can also go ahead and use paint if you're comfortable going ahead and using it. Now, what we're going to be doing as part of today's illustration for art is going to be, we're going to be dividing our page into two halves, and we're going to be going ahead and talking about both traditional as well as modern art. And we're going to be going ahead and creating two pieces of that. Now, I will discuss what traditional and modern art is later, but let's go ahead and do sort of like a border to get started, and then I can start off with my discussion and we can continue this, as we go along. So firstly, go ahead and take your scale and draw a border. I'm just going ahead and taking my black color marker and directly doing the border. If you're uncomfortable doing it directly with a sketch pen, then you can definitely go ahead and take, a pencil and go ahead and do this, and then later go ahead and do it with a color marker. I'm very comfortable doing it with a sketch pen, so I'm going ahead and doing it directly. You can also go ahead and skip this part if your sheet already has a margin like this. A lot of drawing books and a lot of sketchbook sheets tend to have these kind of margins already pre-drawn. So if you have that, then great. The next thing that I would like for you to go ahead and do is to divide your sheet of paper into two halves. So here I'm just taking the same scale and the same marker, and I'm going ahead and just dividing my sheet of paper into half. Now, once gone ahead and done with this, have this ready, and I can go ahead and start off my discussion. So let's go ahead and talk about art. Now, what is art? Now, art is anything that is basically some form of creativity. It is some form of imagination. It is something that you're going ahead and creating. Now, art can be of many, many different types, but what we've gone ahead and done over time is we've gone ahead and divided art and craft into two bits. But art and craft are very, very similar. They have a very thin line in terms of difference in terms of like both of them. But art and craft, I would say, are very, very similar. Now, in order to make this very, very fruitful, what we've done is we've gone ahead and made today's class only purely about art, and the next class is going to be purely about craft. So today, let's go ahead and start talking about art forms. Now, like I mentioned, art is some form of creativity, but mostly art that we see is going to be all related to using some form of medium and then going ahead and creating some form of imagination, picture, going ahead and creating some form of artwork on some medium. So, what do I basically mean by this? Now, when I talk to you about the forms of art or basically the mediums of art, you automatically understand what I mean by this. So, firstly, could be for some form of pencil sketching. So, if you've gone ahead and attended my pencil sketching course, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's basically going ahead and taking paper, taking a pencil, and going ahead and sketching and creating a drawing. So, you can be going ahead and creating mountains, you can be going ahead and creating still life. You can be going ahead and drawing an animal. Whatever it is basically some form of medium, which is your pencil, and then going ahead and doing it another base medium, which is your paper. Now, in the same format, we have many, many, many types. We've always gone ahead and done some form of coloring in classes. We've gone ahead and done some form of soft pastel art. We've also gone ahead and done some form of oil pastel art. We've also gone ahead and used a bunch of color pencils. Now, all of these mediums basically we take and then use it on paper, and we get a beautiful art form. We go ahead and take our imagination, whatever we feel like drawing or coloring or creating. We take all of those things, put it on paper. Now, that is art. Now, one form, like I mentioned, was all of these, tools that we went ahead and used. But we have other tools that we also have, which is also called painting. Now, painting basically is taking, one tool, like for example, a brush, and then going ahead and taking some paint medium. So, paint mediums could be watercolor paints, it could be acrylic paints, it could be oil paints, it could be gouache paints. You have so many different kinds of mediums. You have poster paints, you have so many mediums that you can go ahead and use, and you take all of those different kinds of mediums, and then you have different surfaces that you put it on. For example, watercolor painting you do on paper, versus you go ahead and do acrylic painting on canvas, you do oil painting on canvas, you do gouache and poster painting again on paper. So again, here we have a multiple of tools and equipments that we go ahead and use in order to create some beautiful masterpieces. Now this was all about what kind of types or mediums are there in order to create art. But we also have another differentiation of art, which is also called in terms of the types of art. So we've basically gone ahead and named art in different formats. Now before we get started with those different formats, let's go ahead and do a little bit of drawing, and then we can go ahead and continue with that discussion. So what I'm going to do is, on my right hand side, I want to go ahead and create my modern art piece. So modern art piece, I want it to be something really fun and unique. I will explain what my modern art piece is going to be later on. But for now, let's go ahead and start coloring it in. Here I've gone ahead and taken yellow, and I'm going ahead and drawing sort of like a flower. I want it to look very modern. I want it to look very new. I want it to look really bright. So I've gone ahead and taken my yellow as my bright color, and then I'm going ahead and taking black in order to do sort of like an outline of my flower. Now here you can go ahead and switch up the colors if you like, wherever you like, and also you can go ahead and switch up the style that I'm going ahead and doing it in. If you want to go ahead and switch it up into, for example, doing a different kind of leaf, you want to go ahead and do a different kind of flower, or you want to go ahead and do a different background kind of design, that also works completely well. Just make sure to have sort of like a modern look to it in order for it to classify as modern art. So here you can see I'm going ahead and taking my black sketch pen and coloring these beautiful leaves in. What I'm going to go ahead and do next is I'm going to go ahead and do a bunch of circles right at the top that could be form of pollens on top. So this is again sort of like an interpretation of what modern flowers could probably look like. So we know what a traditional flower is, and we know how to go ahead and paint it, and this is sort of like a modern, clean look to it. Now, modern art tends to have a lot of brightness, like I said, so we couldn't just leave it like this. So, what I will be doing after I finish these few lines on my flower is I'm going to go ahead and also add in sort of like a background using my yellow. It's going to be a bunch of blobs here and there, and you will see how modern and how clean and how expressive it ends up looking. So here you can see I'm going ahead and doing this. And like I said, by all means, if you feel like you want to go ahead and change any part of it, please go ahead and change some part of it. There is no hard and fast rule that you have to do it exactly the way I'm going ahead and doing it. Change up the colors, change up the style. Just make sure you have a modern, clean look to it. So as you can see, I'm going ahead and doing my background. Also, modern art tends to have a lot of vivid colors and a lot of vivid patterns. So let's say if you want to go ahead and do some form of other vivid pattern or color. So maybe instead of doing just yellow like how I am, you want to go ahead and take 4 or 5 colors and do the sort of background. Go ahead and do that. That will look really fascinating and amazing as well. So as you can see, just going ahead and doing this really simply and easily. Good job, everybody. And I can see some of you are still wondering, what to do, and take your time in figuring out how you want to go ahead and take this forward, because I will be going ahead and talking and continuing our discussion now, and you can go ahead and do this in your representative manner. So this is my modern art piece that I have done on my right hand side. So let's go ahead and continue our discussion while you are going ahead and doing your modern art piece. So, like I was talking to you, I was telling you that we had one form of differentiation of art in terms of the medium used, and then we have the differentiation of art based on what you're actually going ahead and creating. So one example of it is something called still life. So still life is everything that basically we find in and around us that basically doesn't have a life. So for example, if you have a bowl, you have a cup, you have a pot, you have some form of a box, a cube, whatever it is, all of that is called still life. So that is one category of it. So like that we have many categories. Another category could be botanicals. If you've gone ahead and attended my botanical art course, you will know that it's basically a whole study of flowers, trees, plants, things like that. Then we have something called landscapes. Landscapes are basically, big, big pictures or paintings of landscapes that you see around us. So scenery, sunsets, mountains, things like that tend to be landscapes. So in that format, again, you have very, very many differentiations. So one other example could be illusion art, or some one another example could be 3D art forms. Another art form could be loose florals. So, for example, if you look behind me right here, that's a form of loose florals that I've gone ahead and so in this format, we have different types of art forms again, or the differentiation of art forms or categories of art forms are again differentiated by the kind of art that you're actually going ahead and doing. Now we have one last category of differentiation in terms of art, which is basically the most classic and the most spoken about differentiation of art that we have. Now, this is basically traditional versus a modern art form. Now, like I mentioned, we've already gone ahead and done the modern art form right here. So let's go ahead and do the traditional version, and then we can go ahead and talk about how they are different from each other. So for my traditional art form, I'm going ahead and taking my black marker and I'm going ahead and doing a bunch of boundaries. Now this art that I'm doing right here is going to be some form of folk art. It's going to be basically inspired by a Madhubani, and I want it to be something that's really really nice. So I don't want it to be exactly like a Madhubani, but I wanted it to be similar to a Madhubani. So what I'm doing right here, I'm going ahead and doing a bunch of mod borders like so, because most traditional art forms tend to have like beautiful borders on them, which gives a really really clean and neat look to the picture. It's not very vivid, I would say, because they wanted it to be something that was very close to nature. It was going to be something that was very very part of in nature. So most of your traditional folk art forms are not something that are really really vivid or out of the box. They're just very simple representations of what is basically happening in and around us. So here I'm going ahead and drawing sort of border, because borders were again something that was so fond of as part of traditional art forms. So once I'm done with my border, I'm going ahead and picking up some form of nature related topics. So here I've gone ahead and picked fish. Now you can go ahead and take whatever you like when it comes to this. If you feel like you want to go ahead and take a tree, or you want to take a bird, or you want to go ahead and take a human being, whatever works for you, but take something that represents nature in some aspect. You can take a sun, you can take a moon, you can go ahead and take any sort of a manner. And then what I want you to go ahead and do is start coloring that in with any primary colors. So at back in the day when traditional art was basically being created, they mostly used, very, very closed, primary colors, because they didn't have such synthetic materials to go ahead and create very, very modern, bright colors. So here, that's what I'm doing. I'm going to be sticking to red, yellow, green. I'm going to be sticking to orange colors like this, just like that. So what I've done is I'm going ahead and filling this up with a little bit of red on the top for the face. I'm going ahead and doing a blue for the body of the fish. And then for the fins and the tail, I'm going to go ahead and do green. Now, again, for the background as well, it was really, really simple back in the day. They didn't really have like, over the top backgrounds or anything. So what I did was I just took a little bit of yellow and I've gone ahead and colored the whole background yellow. Now, just one thing that I noticed when I was going ahead and doing this was my sketch pens were bleeding into each other. So my yellow is not looking as clean as I would have liked. So make sure to, let your color dry before you go ahead and start this, so that you don't make a mistake like how I have gone ahead and made it. mistake. And also, if you feel like they're still bleeding, then go ahead and use another medium. For example, if you have crayons or color pencils, go ahead and use that so that you don't have this sort of bleeding effect and your artwork doesn't get really, really dirty. So as you can see these small, small black lines. This I noticed only later on, so I couldn't do anything about it. But make sure you go ahead and not make the same mistake that I've gone ahead and made right here. All right. Okay, perfect. So now I've gone ahead and done my traditional art form as well. Now, while you go ahead and do your traditional art form, let's talk about the differences between modern art as well as traditional art. Now, modern art is basically all art that is present in today's day and age, and it's highly, highly influenced by what we see in today's day and age. Now, what we see in today's day and age is obviously something which is very bright, it's very liberating, it's very, representative of our weird imaginations and things like that. So, modern art is basically taking everything that we have done in traditional art. So, traditional art, could be a representation, like I said, of nature. So, they want to go ahead and take that and make it something that is really unique. They want to go ahead and represent that in a very, very unique manner. So modern art is sometimes going to be very, very simple form of art, but it's going to be something that's really, really creative, really, really bright, really, really, out there in a way. Now, another very, very large characteristic of modern art is that modern art sometimes doesn't really have any form of meaning. So, though some forms of art, for example, this flower does represent in nature or some form of flower, a lot of modern art tends to be abstract in nature, which is that it doesn't really have any meaning or essence to it. It doesn't really have some form of identity to it. It's just a simple kind of idea, simple form of creativity, simple form of feeling that is basically put on paper. And modern art is also an art form which goes ahead and takes a lot of different mediums and creates one piece of art. Now, traditional art didn't really have that. Traditional art basically went ahead and used only one medium of sorts, versus modern art went ahead and used many, many mediums. Now, coming to traditional art, like I mentioned, is basically some form of folk art. But as time evolved, they went ahead and started using different mediums like watercolors, acrylics, and things like that. Now, all of the art forms that you see in traditional art is mostly representations of nature. So you go ahead and see a lot of flowers, you go ahead and see a lot of trees, you go ahead and see a lot of landscapes, you go ahead and see a lot of representation of daily lives in a very, very realistic format. So these art forms are very complicated. You have very intricate, very detailed art forms. It's not simple at all. It's very, very deep and there's a lot of depth to it because they wanted to go ahead and create, a lot of visualization. They wanted to go ahead and depict everything as it was in that day and age. So traditional art becomes, a form of a depiction of sorts. It becomes some form of almost a picture of what was existing back in the day. And like I mentioned earlier, traditional art form normally used only one medium. They didn't really interchange between mediums. So if you were a traditional watercolor artist, you would only stick to watercolor and you wouldn't really go ahead and use different mediums in order to create one art piece. Traditional art also went ahead and used a lot of primary colors because synthetic tools and synthetic colors and chemicals were not manufactured back in the day. So they went ahead and stuck to very, very basic, very, very natural, going ahead and using only colors that were basically very easily available in and around them. Now, what I have done with our pictures today is created a very modern art, but and one very traditional art. But obviously, you had in between phases of different art forms that basically came up and existed as well, and that is basically how the evolution of art went by. So, I want to talk a little bit about that evolution, and then I'm going to give you 5 fun facts, and then we can end with today's class. Now, the evolution of art basically started off with people wanting to go ahead and describe or going ahead and represent or going ahead and sort of identifying what is happening around them. So, very, very traditional art or very, very art from the olden days basically was just simple simple drawings of what was happening in and around them. So, for example, if there was a cow and there was like a lake and the cow is drinking water, then they would just go ahead and draw that. So, like that, we had different festivals, different events that were going ahead and happening, and people used to just draw these simple events or depictions of these events, and that was the form of art that existed. As time went on, they obviously were able to create paper, and once they created paper, they started going ahead and picking out pigments as well. So pigments were basically picked out by, for example, strawberry is pink. You have a watermelon again, which is pink, and then you have beetroot, which is maroon. So you have different colors. You have yellow coming from turmeric. They went ahead and found these kind of natural pigments and started going ahead and putting it on paper, and automatically started getting very beautiful artworks that they were going ahead and creating with a lot of color. As they went on with this, they were able to create more and more color palettes, and they were able to better their quality of paper as well as better their quality of surfaces that they work with. As that time went on, the different mediums started coming into existence. For example, watercolor, acrylic paint, oil painting, all of these mediums came in, and then bigger and larger pictures and paintings started existing. And that is what the history or the evolution of art has been over time. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the five artifacts that I want to go ahead and talk to you about, and then we can go ahead and wind up with today's class. Now, the first fact that I have with you is basically about art and the Olympics. So, art back in the day was also called, part of Olympics. It was actually an Olympic event. It was considered some form of sport wherein people used to go ahead and create art during the Olympics. The next fact that I have for you is basically that of the Mona Lisa. Now, Mona Lisa, like is one of the most famous paintings that exist in a modern day. And Mona Lisa, because it is so fond of by everybody and so loved by everybody, that they actually have a own mailbox for Mona Lisa. So if you go ahead and you have something to tell Mona Lisa, then you can go ahead and send a postcard to her, or you can go ahead and send some form of goodie to her, and she has her own mailbox. The next fact that I have for you is basically that of the color wheel. Now, if you've gone ahead and attended one of my few of my previous classes, you would have attended and learned about the color wheel. And when I spoke to you about the color wheel, I didn't give you this fact, but I have this fact for you right now, which is that the color wheel is in existence before the United States of America was also found. The color wheels and the concept of the color contrast and things like that existed even before they invented the country or founded the country of United States of America. The fourth fact that I have for you is about one artist called Willard Wiggin. Now, Willard Wiggin basically went ahead and created really miniature pieces of art. They were so tiny that they used to fit in, rice pieces of probably the end of a needle. And one time he actually went ahead and swallowed his own art piece. So, how disappointed! He would have taken so much time to go ahead and create that art piece, but he went ahead and swallowed it. The last fact I have for you is about a street artist. Now, street artist Banksy was one who basically went ahead and created art on the streets. And what he did was in 2003, he went to the Tate Modern Museum, and he went ahead and stuck his painting to the wall. And for 3 whole days, people never figured out that, this was not part of the art gallery. It took them 3 days to figure out that, this was not part of the art gallery, and then they eventually moved the painting out. Now, I can see you've all gone ahead and done such an amazing job. I am so happy with the work you've gone ahead and done. Beautiful work, everybody. If you haven't already gone ahead and finished up with your work, it's completely all right. You can go ahead and do it after the class. Now, make sure you go ahead and do the submission of this, artwork that you've gone ahead and done, both traditional and modern, because I want to go ahead and see how you got creative. If you've gone ahead and done the same thing that I have done, then I would still love to go ahead and see it, because it'll be so unique and beautiful to see you do whatever you've gone ahead and done. Now, like I mentioned, make sure to get the certificate when you can. Make sure to attend all of the classes and make sure to do all of your submissions on time. I'll see you guys in the next class where we'll go ahead and talk about craft. Bye bye.
Hi everyone, we are excited to have you here in today's fun filled learning session at Uolo. Here is a quick look at how you can submit your work after the class. As a first step, go to live.uolo.com. You can use any browser to access this site. On this page, you will see a list of all our classes. Scroll down and you can see the Submit Your Work button. And then you will see a list of the classes that you've last attended, which could, for example, show the dance or craft or science experiment classes you've attended recently. Next, it will show you the list of children whose names are registered in this mobile number. Choose your name from this list to submit your work. For instance, if you are Satvik Kumar, choose that name. And then choose the class for which you would like to make your submission. For example, if you've attended the New Year's Masquerade Party session and you'd like to make the submission for this class, click on the Submit Your Work button below that. And then upload the photo you've taken. Choose the image from your phone and click Submit. You can scroll down and view all your past submissions and see how many of your friends or peers have liked your work. You can also see others' work and like their work to inspire your friends. If you want to showcase your work on social media, that too is very simple. Click on Share, copy the link and post it on Instagram or Facebook or any other platform of your choice. Just a tiny reminder, your submission looks a lot better if you could click a photo in the landscape mode rather than the portrait mode. Do not forget to tag us at YOLO_app. I'm eagerly looking forward to